you for being here. We'll begin with roll call. Councilmember Chair Allen is here. Druffel, here. Hurt, she's in the building. All right, Mendez, here. Okay, there she is. Thank you. Pulley, here. Roten, Sledge, here. Suara, not here yet. Syracuse, Toombs, here. Van Reese, present. Vercher. Great. Thank y'all for being here. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is a quorum. We can begin our business. First, I will read items that are proposed to be on consent agenda. If anyone wants to pull any item off, please let me know and we'll discuss it in more detail. And then I will read the captions. So currently proposed for consent, RS 2022-1422, RS 2022-1446, and let me preface that by saying we had a discussion in budget and in affordable housing about RS 2022-1445, and then several other bills that followed it that are very similar. So I have left 1445 not on consent, so we can have that same discussion, but I'm putting the ones that follow on consent. So if you have specific questions about those, feel free to let me know. So on consent, RS 2022-1446, 1447, 1448. And then also on consent, RS 2022-1453, 1454, 1455, 1457, 1458, 1460, 1461, 1462, 1463, 1464, and 1465. Do any of those items need to be pulled off of consent? Seeing, do I need to pull the Barnes? That one's off. Okay. Seeing none, I will read through the captions on the consent agenda. RS 2022-1442 sponsors Allen, authorizes Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the property damage claim of Nashville Electric Service against Metro government in the amount of $32,801.20. RS 2022-1446 sponsors Parker, Allen, and Welsh, approves an amendment to a grant contract for constructing affordable housing between the Metro Housing Trust Fund Commission and Living Developments Concepts. RS 2022-1447 sponsors Allen and Welsh, approves an amendment to a grant contract for constructing affordable housing between the Metro Housing Trust Fund Commission and Crossroads Campus. RS 2022-1448 sponsors Parker, Allen, and Welsh, approves an amendment to a contract for construction of affordable housing between the Metro Housing Trust Fund Commission and Westminster Home Connection. Also on consent, RS 2022-1453 sponsors Allen, Young, and Stiles, approves a cooperative purchasing master agreement for refuse truck rentals and related products and services for the Department of Water Services. RS 2022-1454 sponsors Allen and Bradford, approves a cooperative purchasing master agreement for large frame agricultural tractors and attachments for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Also on consent, RS 2022-1455 sponsors Allen, approves a cooperative purchasing master agreement for public utility equipment with related accessories and supplies for the Department of General Services. Also on consent, RS 2022-1457 sponsors Allen, authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the property damage claim of WeGo Public Transit against Metro government in the amount of $28,000, $40.96. On consent, RS 2022-1458 sponsors Allen, Bradford, Welsh, and Suara. This approves training opportunities for the public grant from the Tennessee State Library and Archives to the Metro Nashville Public Library to provide funds for free technology training and equipment for use by members of the community. On consent is RS 2022-1460 sponsors Allen, Bradford, Welsh, and others. This approves an in-kind grant from Lawrence K. Wolf, MD, and family to the Metro Parks and Recreation Department of a Knaba and Company baby grand piano to be placed in the entrance entrance lobby of Centennial Performing Arts Studio for staff and visitors to use. On consent, RS 2022-1461 approves a grant from the Centennial Park Conservancy to the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation to provide funding for one part-time position in the Metro Parthenon Museum store. RS 2022-1462 sponsors Allen, Bradford, Welsh, and others, approves a grant from the Nashville Parks Foundation to the Metro Parks and Recreation Department for programming improvements at Metro Community Centers. On consent, RS 2022-1463 sponsors Henderson, Allen, and Bradford, approves an in-kind grant from the Friends of Atafama Archaeological Park to the Metro Parks and Recreation Department to fund improvements to Atafama Archaeological Park. On consent, RS 2022-1464 approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Metro Nashville Police Department and the Israel Ministry of Tourism for extra-duty police services. Also on consent is RS 2022-1465, sponsors Johnston, Allen, Withers, and Young, authorizes Metro Water Services to enter into facility encroachment agreement with the CSX Transportation to construct, use, and maintain culverts in the railroad right-of-way at Hogan Road and Regent Drive in Davidson County. I do have a letter from the sponsor on that one. Those are the resolutions on consent. That's all that's on consent. Do I have anything need to come off of consent? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? It's been moved. Is there a second? Great. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Do we still have 9 people? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We approve. 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Now we'll go through items that are not on consent. RS 2022-1443 sponsors Parker, Suara, and others, authorizes the conveyance of property to nonprofit organizations and authorizes grants not exceeding $15,497,279 from the Barnes Fund for Affordable Housing to certain nonprofit organizations selected for the purpose of constructing and rehabilitating affordable or workforce housing. Do I have a motion? We do have an amendment. Before we get to that amendment, I do want to say that the Budget Committee members have all been provided with the same presentation packet that was given in the Affordable Housing Committee. If you would like to see that presented, you can go back and watch the video of the Affordable Housing Committee, but you do have a paper copy on your desk. Councilmember Reese, you have an amendment? Let me turn your mic on. So do we have a motion on the bill? Okay, from the committee. So Councilmember Van Rees, on your amendment.
Yes, I'd like to move an amendment with an explanation.
Okay, you are recognized.
The amendment is simple housekeeping amendment regarding the correction of a zip code in the Woodbine project, as well as I believe removing you from the vote because you serve on a board that is on this project. So with that, I move approval of the amendment.
Okay, do we have a second on the amendment? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Any opposed? Amendment is recommended.
Yeah, I already got up on my soapbox on the Affordable Housing Committee, so feel free to watch the video.
Okay, sounds good. So we have a motion on the bill as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? 1 not voting. That's me. Thank you. Next is RS 2022-1444, sponsors Parker, Allen, Toombs, and others, authorizes a grant not to exceed $1 million for the Barnes Fund for Affordable Housing to Pathway Lending for the purpose of providing weatherization assistance and energy efficiency improvements to housing units owned by qualified low-income individuals and families. Do I have a motion? Been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions on this? Councilmember Hurt.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Last year, we passed a resolution or a bill for the NES Roundup that was required to do the exact same thing. So I'm wondering, why are we giving $1 million to this when we have several $1 million coming in from that NES Roundup Fund to do the exact same thing?
Good question. I think I have seen people from NES in the building earlier, and is there someone from Pathway Lending that would like to answer that question? Thank you. Please introduce yourself and...
Good evening. I'm Amy Bunton with Pathway Lending. I'm our Chief Operating Officer. Ma'am, we work with TVA to operate their full home uplift program. We collect and facilitate contributions from local power companies throughout their service territory. And so TVA requested that we provide an application to the Barnes Fund on their behalf as their nonprofit partner and fiscal agent in that regard. I can't really speak to the Nashville Electric Services Roundup program in that context, but this is a 50-50 match provided by TVA to a local a source of funds for that project.
Thank you. I don't see anyone from NES here, so let me ask them to provide us that information before tomorrow on how many people they're reaching with their program, and if they've covered everybody, then we don't need additional programs. But
well, I know that TVA was also part in approving of that roundup, and I would actually like to move for a deferral on this.
Can we find out if there is any time constraint on this? But Ms. Davis, do you want to speak to would a one-meeting deferral cause any difficulty anywhere?
Oh, is it there? Is that up to them, or is this a decision?
Sometimes there's information that we need to know in with regard to a deferral. So if because this is running through the Barnes Fund, I'm reaching out to that folks. I'm just trying to find out if there's a time factor here.
Yes. I know that there are developments that are ready to break ground upon approval of this funding, and so a deferral then just delays those developments going forward.
And this is just specifically the Pathway Lending energy efficiency one, so I don't know if...
yes, that it would delay their ability to get into homes with homeowners and begin those rehab projects.
Okay. So a 2-week delay. But nothing that has to be signed in the next 2 weeks or something like that.
Not that I'm aware of. I know that the funds, in addition to the roundup, will be used to extend their ability to service more households, but we could certainly source the information on how many more households were able to be added with this funding.
Okay, that information would be helpful. So we have a motion for a one-meeting deferral so that we'll be able to, and then re-refer to this committee. Is that part of that motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? I see a second. Okay. We are voting on the motion to defer and re-refer. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. So that was 8 in favor, 1 against. Defer 1 meeting. I'm sorry. Let's do it. Raise hands. I thought I only heard 1 no. All those in favor, please raise your hand of a 1 meeting deferral. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you, Mr. Mendez. That's 5 in favor. Opposed to 1 meeting deferral. 1, 2. Are there some members not voting? This math is not working out. All right, I'm going to say it's 5 in favor, 2 against, 2 not voting. Motion to defer passes. Thank you for that discussion. We'll get the information from NES and have that when we vote in 2 weeks. Next is RS 2022-1445, sponsors Parker, Allen, and Welsh. Approves amendments to 5 grant contracts for constructing affordable housing between the Metro Housing Trust Fund and certain nonprofit organizations. Do we have a motion? I'm listening. So moved. It's second. Great, it's been moved and seconded. Just very briefly to recap what we heard in affordable housing, there are a number of ongoing contracts from different rounds of Barnes Fund that for either the time it takes to clear contracts or COVID complications simply need extensions of time. This is the first of several. The rest of them are on consent, but if people have specific questions, you can certainly ask them under the umbrella of this one. So are there any questions on RS 2022-1445 that might be applied to any of the others? Okay, seeing none, are we ready to vote? All in favor of RS 2022-1445, say aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. Okay, now we have a bunch on consent. Next is RS 2022-1450. Sponsors Sepulveda, Johnston, Gamble, and others. This appropriates $7,519,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds to increase access to existing high-quality child care centers, provide more resources to home-based child care, and invest in efforts to build capacity and build up high-quality child care programs. Do I have a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? I think we have representatives from United Way and Rafa here. If y'all would be willing to very briefly just explain what this does, I would love for the committee to hear this. All right. Come on forward, Travis. Please introduce yourself. 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Apri Gassaway, Director of Education with United Way, and this is...
I'm Travis Claybrook, CEO of Rafa Institute.
And in short, this is a three-part investment structure. One part is focused on home-based childcare. The other part is focused on center-based childcare. And capacity building to really understand these key learnings or research and development that comes from home-based care, center-based care interventions. Rafa has a program model that they will implement in partnership with home-based providers, and we will, United Way, will expand our partnership with center care providers to really close the gap in the reimbursement rate from the state, from families that are on child care vouchers, as well as families that are on a sliding scale, to lessen the burden for child care providers so that they can serve more low-income families. That is the center-based side of the investment structure, and I'll let Travis talk through the home-based side.
Thanks, Apri. Less than 2 minutes, Berkeley.
You can do it.
So the challenge that we are attempting to solve is the gap in access to high quality learning, especially in marginalized, low income, economically isolated communities. And we want to really invest in an infrastructure that's already present, and that is moms, aunties, women that are already keeping kids. They're already doing it. However, they do not have access to critical resources so that they can, one, be sustainable businesses and provide high quality education. So we want to do just a few things. One, that is provide education coaching to these women in the context of a network. We want to provide business coaching to them, and we want to also provide for them licensure coaching. We also want to invest funds or by providing grants to them to either start businesses or to invest in an ongoing business, as well as provide some basic income to help stabilize and bridge the gap between the cost of providing the service and what they are actually making. Thank you.
You did great. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. This was something that was brought to light in the survey on what do people think, what's the biggest thing we need to be doing with the ARP funds, and certainly it's a huge need that we've seen just with regard to child care providing. It's something that COVID just totally knocked out of whack, and I believe these programs are hugely important. Any other questions or comments on this? Councilmember Sepulveda.
Yes, thank you. I just want to highlight the program itself. I think it's a historic step that we're taking as a city. There are also components in here that does specific outreach to the Latino and the Kurdish community. And for the funding, for the home-based childcare funding, it's also going to be open to people without legal status. So I just wanted to also highlight that. I know that many people in minority communities, and not just the immigrant community, we tend to take children to the person down the street, the family member. And so I think that the fact that it's actually going to target resources in those homes makes a lot of sense. So I just want to thank you all for all of your work.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming. There is so much data that shows the critical importance of early childhood education and excellent early childhood education. So I appreciate y'all spreading that capacity around. Councilmember Hurt.
I too want to stand and thank the sponsor as well as those who are providing these services. Far too long, we have had to deal with this, and now you know, and you are telling people that you are more than a babysitter. You are giving them that professionalism that they've been doing for decades, and this is just very wonderful, and thank you very, very much. We appreciate that.
Amen.
I am pleased and honored to be able to support it.
Thank you. Other Councilmember Vercher.
Thank you so much, Chair. I would like to hear about the plan of this, the reporting and the accountability for Vercher Daycare Incorporated, just using that as a hypothetical for the viewing audience. How would someone like me know that this resource is available? How are we targeting, how are we identifying, how are we making sure that this gap that we're attempting to fill, we make sure that it's successful? That's what I want to hear more of the plan.
Thank you. I'm going
regarding the
to
dollars.
refer back to the folks at the public table if y'all can answer that.
Yeah, I'll start on the home-based side. It's a very, very good question. So we are engaging a grassroots effort. Then we're talking literally door to door, identifying home-based providers that are in the community. For example, we're already on the ground in Cumberland View Apartments. We're already on the ground in J.C. Napier and University Court, identifying and connecting with home-based providers and inviting them to this space. The other part of that is, on the evaluation side, is we are partnering with the University of Tennessee Department of Social Work to design our evaluation and research piece. We are using a participatory design process, which allows us to really connect with the providers themselves and work with them to identify and define what does success look like. So instead of creating just sort of this umbrella thing, this is what success looks like, and either you meet it or you don't, what does success look like for you in Cumberland View as a provider? What does success look like for you? And then measure ourselves against that. So there is some work, there's still some design work to do. So I wouldn't be able to give you a, here it is point by point. But that's our approach and that's our strategy. I'll let Apri talk about the center-based piece.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. On the center-based side of things, United Way of Greater Nashville has 20 years of experience in partnering with and investing in child care center operators. And so that's where we're starting first. We're starting with our network. And to Member Sepulveda's point, we're also bringing in 2 additional centers that have a significant population of Hispanic Latino families. And this will be an area of exploration for United Way and how we partner with centers because as we have discussed in previous presentations, the Hispanic Latino community typically opts in and chooses home-based care. And so center-based care will be a new approach, a new way of learning that community and bringing center-based care as an option, as an affordable option to that community. And so we are, part of our learning and part of what we hope to glean from these stabilization resources is to answer the question, what are centers or have centers been able to do as a result of these stabilization resources to enhance their programs? Whether it's to enhance scholarship programs that they wanted to start, whether it is to increase teacher compensation, whether it's to establish a incentive-based model at their programs, whether it's to establish a marketing plan for their centers to draw in more families. So that's part of what that investment will go toward, is to better understand, as a result of these funds and centers not having to fundraise essentially for the gap that exists between what they get reimbursed for from the state and essentially what they have to carry the cost for when they have families on a sliding scale. We get to learn. What are they now able to do above and beyond what they've been able to do, or quite frankly, not been able to do before these resources were available?
Thank you. Councilmember Truffle.
Yeah, great idea. I really like where you're going. Is there a date or a time that you will have that information? Because Obviously, as Councilor Vercher talked about accountability, great idea, but great ideas can sort of fade away if we don't come back and find a follow-through. Good to see you again, Travis. Follow-through. So is there a date or time that we can expect a report out?
Yeah, so as part of the plan, I don't know, Member Sepulveda, if you wanted to add something, but as part of the plan or the investment structure that we submitted, later this fall or later this year, probably Q3, early Q4, we will actually have a plan. A birth to 8 is what the plan will actually be, but concentrating for the purposes of this conversation in the birth to 5 space, we are pulling together or convening a group of cross-sector stakeholders, operators, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, center operators, to really talk about where are the opportunities? What are the systems level things that need to change? And what are some of the programmatic opportunities that are before us? And we will have a plan and present that back to this body by Q3 or Q4 of this year. And a lot of that work will start to be implemented at the start of 2023. Sure.
Councilmember Sepulveda.
Yes, just quickly, as far as some of the outreach go, as it has been stated, there are specific nonprofits that have been chosen to help identify some of these people and those 2 centers in the Latino community. And they will also be reporting to the ARP committee throughout this whole process as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank y'all so much for coming and answering. Councilmember Vercher.
Chair, so the analysis, and just want to just to add some context to it, the analysis doesn't indicate several nonprofits. It only references the Rafa Institute. So can we be on record, just for the viewing audience, what are the other nonprofits will be participating in the $7 million?
I'm going to go to Councilmember Sepulveda or to Ms. Darby.
Ms. Darby.
Councilmember, hang on. You recognize.
The other nonprofit is the United Way of Greater Nashville, and that is noted in the analysis that they will be receiving $5,546,000. The Rafa Institute would get $1,823,000, and then $150,000 would be appropriated to the United Way to convene cross-sector groups to work on that birth through 8 framework.
Other questions?
So United Way is getting the $1 million in addition to the $150,000. Okay.
United Way.
I just didn't know why we broke it out like that. United
Way is getting $5,546,000 in addition to $150,000. The $5,546,000 will be used for the child care centers, and the $150,000 would be used for the birth through 8 framework.
Okay.
Councilmember Sledge.
I think it was added, I think Ms. Darby said that at the end about those childcare providers, but in the attachment that we were given, we have the list of those centers as well with the identifications. I just want people to know if they wanted to look and see, there's the list of centers is available in our documentation.
In the documentation.
That's available online.
Thank you for that clarification. Anything else? Good discussion. Seeing that, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? We recommend approval. 10 in favor, 0 against. Next is RS 2022-1451, sponsor Stiles, Porterfield, Allen, and others. This approves 2 option agreements for the purchase of properties comprising part of the Global Mall site. We will need to defer this, so we'll come back to that. Councilmember Mendez? Do you want to make that motion?
As long as we're going to have discussion.
Yes, the intention is to ask a lot of questions now, and then we'll have time to get many answered, and if there's other stuff that has to come back to us, we'll re-refer it to this committee.
Sure, motion to defer one meeting.
Okay, you're recognized. Anything else? Further discussion?
Well, along that line, I'll just ask my handful of questions, and if there's answers now, that's great. If they come at some other time before we meet next, that's fine. Starting at the highest level of question, I fundamentally don't understand from the press releases why Metro is in the deal at all. Currently, there's another party, the Josie Davis Foundation, that's got a contract, and that contract's being assigned to us, and then we're going to lease all the space to Vanderbilt. And so I'm just fundamentally not clear why Vanderbilt isn't buying it directly. I'm sure somebody can explain that to me.
Do we want to answer your questions one at a time? Or do you want to?
I mean, I'm happy. Mr. Jameson likes to get answers all lumped together. He can get the full.
Okay.
He's good at taking notes. I'll just get them all out there.
There you go. Get it off
he
your chest.
can approach him in any order he wants. I will, before I could vote yes, need to see a lease, not a LOI. And I need to know what the lease terms are. I'll want to know whether Vanderbilt's being given a purchase option or a right of first refusal in the lease, because that would impact, again, if they get a purchase option or a right of first refusal, it'll go right back to the why is Metro in the deal. And then appraisal, I understand appraisals aren't available yet. I assume we'll get that at some point. That's sort of my first round of questions. I know not all of them are answerable right now, but that's them.
Great, thank you. Mr. Jameson?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilman Mendez. On the question with respect to why is Metro in the deal, why not just let Vanderbilt acquire it? I think we have representatives from Vanderbilt here, but they will tell you directly that it does not make sense for them at this time to acquire it. And in fact, they would rather apply those capital dollars to the renovation of the building for their needs, which I think will be somewhat substantial. If the property, which has been, I think, charitably referred to as somewhat of a black hole in the soul of Antioch for a decade plus, if that were to be acquired by any private entity, Vanderbilt, any other, the community would have next to no input on what goes there. I just have to stand back in awe of Councilor Stiles, who has spent nearly 2 years, I think, on this project and a half dozen community meetings, and has a pretty extensive list of the requests from her community for potential uses on this site, stemming from a community kitchen, a performing arts center. All of that, we would relinquish our opportunity to if it simply goes to a private entity. But be that as it may, Vanderbilt does not have the interest, at least at this point, in acquiring it. Metro can control what has been a fairly large and nearly blighted site, and certainly not develop the opportunities to use this if we keep it within our control. And I think it probably would, if 100 Oaks is any precedent, serve as a genuine catalyst for further development, which Metro would then remain within its ability to control as the owner. With respect to the development of the lease, I believe that is ongoing, and I might, if I can, ask the representatives from Vanderbilt and from Metro Legal to chime in on the status of that and what provisions it would contain. And with respect to the appraisal, we are awaiting an updated appraisal on the mall properties. It does appear, even using older appraisals, that we are the finance department's policy has always been make acquisitions within 10% of the appraisals, and the two at issue here, we are clearly within that margin, if you will, and expect to be be even closer. I would make a final comment on the appraisals. They are done in comparison to other essentially vacant malls across the country. In this one, the values don't equate or account for the presence of an anchor tenant. Clearly, once Vanderbilt's leasehold interest is included, we anticipate that the value would escalate even beyond where it is now. But that's the status as far as I know. I don't know if Mr. Cross would like to comment on the lease status and its content.
Just one quick observation. There are two properties at issue. One is the old mall itself, and one of them is one of the 4 anchor stores. Metro currently owns one of the anchor stores. National State owns one, and 2 are privately owned. So this resolution would authorize the purchase of both the mall property and one of the anchor stores. And the idea is for Vanderbilt to lease the mall property and for Metro to do other things with the anchor store. With respect to your specific question about the lease, it's unlikely that we're going to have a lease ready for you to review before this is going to need to be voted on. We have a letter of intent. It does have a provision that calls for us to negotiate in good faith over a purchase option, but doesn't require that they be given that. We just have to negotiate it. But both of the purchase options have underlying purchase and sale agreements that would expire on their terms before Vanderbilt would have a realistic opportunity to do the kind of due diligence that they're going to need to do on the facility.
Yeah, so just following up on that, the LOI is non-binding, so I mean, we're not going to be asked to vote on a $44 million purchase with a non-binding LOI for the lease. That's just an observation. And then I read in the LOI the purchase option as negotiate in good faith, but it appears to require that Vanderbilt be given a right of first refusal on the purchase. It doesn't say negotiate in good faith on that one. It says shall not sell the property during the term without giving Vanderbilt the right of first refusal. And the description of rental rate in the LOI is not enough to vote on a $44 million deal, I don't think. And then I'll let it go because I know it's late, but just one more comment. Mr. Jameson, respectfully, the idea that Vanderbilt would rather use their capital dollars for rehabbing, I've read the press release that says the lease is expected to materially cover the cost of the debt, and I assume Vanderbilt can get debt for roughly the same price that Metro can get debt. And so that would mean that if the rent is going to cover our debt and they can get debt the same cost that we can get debt, that costs the same either way, whether they buy it or lease it, if what the press release says is right. So I'll need to, just before we get around to voting on it, I mean, I love the idea of Vanderbilt being in the area. I'm just, from a real estate deal perspective yet, I haven't really heard a compelling explanation for why Metro's in the deal for the one piece of property, especially if the lease is essentially going to be a pass-through for what our debt service is. But we can cover that as the next few weeks unfold. Thank you.
Sure. And again, I know we have representatives from Vanderbilt here, and I would encourage you while they're here to make sure what I'm saying is correct. But they have made abundantly clear to the administration that their preference is to deploy the capital on the build-out of the building. They also have some capital commitments elsewhere, the Williamson County Hospital, for example. So I don't have a crystal ball as to what their capital commitments will be in the next 2 to 3 years, but they have made clear that an outright purchase, at least at this time, is not their preference.
Thank you. Councilmember Hurt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, how is this going to be impactful to some of the smaller health clinics around, like the Neighborhood Health and Matthew Walker Health Clinic that has served the population in that community for many, many years? I know Vanderbilt is huge and all over everywhere, all over the whole county, and I'm just wondering if it's going to push those smaller agencies and neighborhood health clinics out of business.
Sure, and the objective is certainly to avoid that. And we've spoken with Meharry, for example, that has an 8-physician facility in the area. Vanderbilt has in the past partnered with Meharry and with Matthew Walker in the past on other initiatives, and we think there's opportunities for doing that here. There's a lot left to be determined. If Vanderbilt were to use as much space as anticipated on a liberal basis, that still leaves about 200,000 square feet of room for Metro to do with, and as the community indicates. And if that includes partnerships with some of these providers, I think that is all within the ambit of possibility. But certainly the objective is to avoid any sort of conflict or competitive aspect with those very much valued and treasured providers.
Councilmember Suara.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councilmember Mendez covered some of the ones that I had. In the analysis, it says that there's a third-party report, due diligence report. Would we be able to have that before the vote?
One of the buildings this week and possibly by
I don't know if you could hear that, but the request is that General Services does have an expected report, and the anticipation is we will have that before the vote.
Okay. Now, thank you. The other question is, does finance do any analysis of any major investment or cash investment of this kind, looking at what we're bringing in, what we're spending, and things like that? Is there any analysis done in-house for something like this? And if so, do we have access to that?
What is required under the code is that there be an appraisal of real estate prior to the acquisition, and that is forthcoming. We are a peer. Again, we're waiting on updates to what were older appraisals. We already appear, taking the older appraisals value at face value, we already appear to be within the 10% margin of error, if you will. If your question, however, may be towards what is the market share
what
analysis,
is the rate of return and things like that, yes.
I don't believe that has typically been, it's certainly not required under the code. I don't know that it's been typically provided in real estate acquisitions of this level. We could certainly ask and see if a 2-week turnaround is possible, but make no promises.
Okay, all right. Thank you. If I can have something like that as well as a third-party due diligence report, I think it can inform my decision. Thank you. And I do want to thank Councilmember Stiles. I think she worked very well on this. It's a good deal.
Thank you. And speaking of which, Councilmember Stiles.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, I don't have to stand so good.
You can.
Great. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and thank you, everyone, for your thoughts and for your questions. I do want to reiterate why this is a great deal for Metro from the standpoint of being able to utilize that remaining space in a way that the community definitively wants and needs. With Vanderbilt owning the entirety of that site, they would not be beholden to us for anything, and could, not that they would, but that they could do whatever they wanted. And I think we have had very robust conversations in the Southeast about what people would like to see, and people are very excited about the outcomes that we've come up with so far as we embark on the next few months of community meetings to make those things happen. We have to get past this point, and so I would ask all of my colleagues to please vote yes. I know we are working very diligently on the lease and on the terms to come up with information so you have that in advance. This is deferred for one meeting, but we certainly will not be dragging our feet in the meantime. And we do have great other healthcare organizations in the Southeast that are able to work with Vanderbilt. It's not a competitive market. You know, there's Siloam, and having Vanderbilt there, it just creates other options. And I think that's great and not a negative point at all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And can I ask one question? We've heard about some nifty shared spaces where nonprofits can have a spot. Is there a potential for that in this space?
Absolutely. Okay. So one of the things that came up in our community meetings were co-working spaces and also opportunities for entrepreneurships. And so if we could have one of those spaces where nonprofits could share so they're not worried so much about overhead, I think that's a positive point. We have a lot of business owners in the area.
Great. Glad that's in the discussion. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we are not going to vote on the passage of this. We're just voting on a one-meeting deferral. All those in favor of one-meeting deferral? Any opposed? 9 in favor, 0 against. Well, one just walked out of the room. Don't get a vote. Next is RS 2022-1452. This is related. Issues general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $46 million. We are required to defer on bond issues for one meeting. So do I have a motion for one meeting deferral? Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of one meeting deferral, say aye. Any opposed? We defer. 9 in favor, 0 against. Anyone not voting? 0 not voting. Next, pass a few things that were on consent. I believe the next thing is BL 2022-1163. Is that correct? Sponsors Allen and Evans. This amends the Metro Code to create a funding mechanism to support the implementation of inclusionary housing incentive program. I'm asking to defer this indefinitely. We have another bill that will perform a similar function. That one's on first reading, so we're going to put this one on hold until we see how this does. But I thank my co-sponsors and ask you if you will look at BL 1170 and sign on to that one if you are so inclined. So I've made a motion to defer indefinitely. Any further discussion? I think that was a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Are we still 9? 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Next is BL 2022-1166. Sponsors Hauser, Allen, and Withers. Approves a lease agreement between the Metro Board of Education and the Bellevue Civic Association. Councilmember Hauser, you want to move it and amend it? Let me turn on your mic.
Housekeeping amendment. The original bill mentioned that this building was going to be used for a charter school. It is not. It's being used for the offices for the nonprofits that are leasing it. And that's all the amendment is.
Okay.
So I ask that we move the amendment.
All right, this is on the amendment? Okay. Let's vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We recommend the amendment. Now on the bill as amended, did you have a question on that, Councilmember Mendez? You're recognized.
In this, I guess I've got several questions. I'll just ask them all again, and I don't know who the right person is. I am curious to know more about the proposed tenant. I think they were, I just got curious because I hadn't heard of the organization before, so I was looking around earlier today, and I think they were formed last year. There hasn't been a chance for a 990 yet. They don't have a website. The lease doesn't say who all they're going to have in the space. And so it's just not really clear to me exactly who we're dealing with, whether they've got any financial track record and whether they're going to sublease the space. If this is going to be a Metro building for the community, I think we need a little bit more, like, actually in writing about who's going to end up using the building.
Okay, Councilmember Hauser looks ready to answer that question.
I got it in writing. Okay, the organization that was formed because Metro can only lease to one entity. It cannot lease to 7. So the 7 got together and formed a 1 that the Metro will be leasing to. Metro will be leasing to the Bellevue Civic Association. The Bellevue Civic Association is made up by these nonprofits: Arts Bellevue, Bellevue Community Foundation, Bellevue Harpeth Chamber of Commerce, Bellevue Harpeth Historic Association, the Exchange Club of Bellevue, God's Word for Warriors, and Hope for Haiti's Children. So the agreement is that all these organizations are going to be paying rent based upon their number of hours and square footage of the building they will be using. They will be paying rent to the Bellevue Civic Association that will be paying the rent to Metro.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Mendez.
So I've got a couple questions. I'll go ahead and, again, just ask them, and I'm not sure who exactly they're for. So I caught most of those organizations. I didn't catch the God's Warrior one. What is that one?
The God's Warrior word for warriors is one that I was least familiar with, and it is one that is providing, oh gosh, I forget, is there any, nobody's here. Let me try to pull out, and Mike may have a better explanation for exactly what they do, and
while people are looking.
I'm sorry, I'm forgetting their mission. I don't think I have it in front of me. I can get that information for you before tomorrow night, and we'll be glad to do that, council member. Okay. But for the life of me, at the very moment, their mission has just not stuck in my brain.
Okay, if you can supply that before the vote tomorrow, that would be,
well,
that would
but
be
I will
good.
definitely have that for you.
And
And I can also give you a copy of this list that has all the websites for each of these organizations. I'll be glad to scan that and get that to you.
So respectfully, the lease doesn't say this. And if these are the organizations that are going to occupy Metro's space, I think it should be reflected in the lease. It should be easy enough to say who's using how much space, and so I would ask that this be. I'll move to have it deferred one meeting and ask that the sponsor, I guess it's from MMPS, and the council office work to get an amendment to this lease to document so we know who the tenants are. And I am interested in learning more. I've heard of the other organizations. I haven't heard of God's Word for Warrior.
So we have a motion.
I know it's a counseling organization, but I just can't remember their entire mission. I appreciate Metro Legal kind of jumping in.
I think Mr.
Part of the way it
Jameson has
was written is because that's what legal told us we had to write it this way.
Okay, Mr. Jameson.
Certainly legitimate questions from the councilman regarding God's Word for Warrior. What I would ask is that in addition to Council Lady Hauser, former council member Charlie Tigert and others have poured blood, sweat, and tears into this. And my understanding is that they had some pretty sensitively timed build-out contracts. If there's any way to avoid the mandatory one meeting deferral, if we'll have 24 hours, if we don't have this to you tomorrow, we'll certainly agree and concede to a deferral. But if we can just have that shot at getting that information to you.
I mean, respectfully, the organization was created last July, has no website, and the lease doesn't say anything about who's going to use the space.
Right.
And that, I mean, seriously, it doesn't say who's going to use the space, and really, that's what we're doing with Metro Property.
Right. If we can have the chance to answer those questions in 24 hours, that's all.
Can we attach that list as an exhibit to this resolution? Does that make it?
If somebody wants to come up with an amendment to the lease, not attach the list, but like a lease term that requires this 8-month-old organization to do what they say they're going to do, then that's fantastic. But we need more details than just a lease to an 8-month-old organization with no website, no tax return, no 990.
Just trying to.
And that's
I think in other context, when it comes to like giving grant money, we have like really strict rules about what you got to do to be a nonprofit to get money from Metro, but we're going to give space without following any of those sort of things.
I believe we're renting space. We're not giving space.
Yeah, we're renting. We're not giving a thing.
Chair, there's nothing in the lease that says what that space will get used for. Period, full stop.
So do you want...
Councilmember Hauser, you're recognized.
Yes, so I want to make sure that I understand the question. Do you want to know what each of these organizations are going to use? Like when West Precinct is bringing the children's education programs, do you want that? What all do you specifically want? I'll get you what you need, but I need very specific direction from you about what it is that you want to see.
Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
Respectfully, my request is for Metro Legal to present us with a lease that states the requirement of how the space is going to be used in a way that actually tells us what the space is going to be used for. And currently the lease doesn't have that.
Can we define a level of the specificity? Is there a standard of, I mean, currently I believe it says office space for civic organization. I'm just asking a legal question here because I'm not a real estate lawyer. In a typical good lease, what level of specificity do we need? I'll ask either lawyer to answer that.
Usually you want to know the general use of the facility. Is it going to be used for, retail? Is it going to be used for, what it's going to be used for? Oftentimes, commercial real estate leases will have a whole host of prohibited uses and sometimes a list of allowable uses if there's not one specific use detailed.
Thank you. Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
And certainly, if you're leasing to an organization that's been around for 100 years, like the phone company, it's different than if you're leasing to an organization that's been around for 6 months that has no publicly available information about them.
Gotcha. Okay. So we have.
Also, I'd like to make sure.
Hauser.
Yes, I'd like to make sure that you realize that these organizations are putting in over $100,000 of their own money to renovate the building that is really not usable in its current state. So it's not costing, I just want to make sure that everyone understands, this is not costing Metro any money. Metro is actually having improvements to their building from this, and the lease is to cover all of Metro's expenses. So I certainly, respect Mr. Mendez's questions, and we'll do everything we can to get answers to satisfy him before the meeting tomorrow, and I'll be working with legal and the organizations to do that this evening. But I do want everyone to realize this is not going to cost Metro a dime. This is an unused building that has been sitting vacant for over 3 years, and that these nonprofits are putting in over $100,000 of renovations, and that the work that is going to be provided in this space is to benefit of the community. It's not for anybody to make any money. It is all to provide needed services to the Bellevue community. So I just want to make sure that we understand that, and I'll do work however long it's going to take to get this together. It is critical that we move this forward. We originally thought we were going to be able to present this in January. There were some variety of miscommunication, so it was not. And we actually have events that are to happen in this building, I believe, in August. But we've got to get this moving, and all of the contractors that have been willing to donate their work and materials that we have secured pricing on in order to make that happen. So it is pretty critical that we move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. So we are voting on a motion to defer one meeting. All those in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed? No. Let's do a show of hands. That was not clear. All opposed, all in favor of the motion to defer, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? 4. Okay, the committee recommends deferral, 5 in favor, 4 against. Is that the correct number of people in the room? I believe it is. Okay, next is...
May I ask one question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I just want to make sure I understand. So if we get the information needed by the meeting tomorrow, does this still have to be deferred?
This is the council, this is the committee's recommendation. The council will vote.
Okay,
and so if
thank
you can present the information tomorrow, excuse me. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Why is it deferred by rule? Okay, I'm sorry, we need a civics lessons here. Council, Ms. Darby, explain this to us, please.
There's a rule that requires it to be automatically deferred. If you'll give me a second, I'll find the number for you. Is it 17? 8. It's when the committee moves to defer, there's an automatic deferral. It's Rule 8.
Automatic. Okay. I was not
for one meeting.
For one meeting. So that is the rule, and that is how we have voted.
Yes.
I think that's...
I don't know that all the members that voted to defer realized they were automatically forcing this to be deferred a meeting. Can we have another vote?
I am asking council if there are remedies for the question that has been raised.
You can only reconsider if one of the movements for the motion moves to reconsider. Someone who voted in the affirmative, sorry.
If any of the people who voted to defer
Yes.
ask to reconsider.
One of those people would have to move to reconsider the vote.
Councilmember Sawara, you're recognized.
I'll move to reconsider.
Thank you. Now, all right, there's been a motion to reconsider the motion to defer.
I need a second.
I need a second. It's been seconded. Thank you for that. Okay, so everybody understand where we are. If this committee votes to defer, it's not just a recommendation, it's an automatic deferral. Knowing that and the discussion that we've had, which has been good and robust, and we understand considerations, and we understand that Councilmember Hauser is going to do everything she can to provide the information by tomorrow, or to make late filed amendments if that's what's needed. We are voting on the motion to defer. Please raise your hands. All those in favor of deferring one meeting, please raise your hand. I'm sorry, all those in favor of a one meeting deferral, that's what are we voting on the motion to reconsider?
Move to reconsider, motion to reconsider.
I'm sorry, thank you for that clarification. We are voting on the motion to reconsider. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to reconsider, please raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 in favor of the motion to reconsider. All those opposed to the motion to reconsider, raise your hand. 1, 2,
3.
Okay. Reconsider. Hang on, I'm making records. So 6 in favor, 3 against the motion to reconsider. We are reconsidering.
The motion to defer.
The motion to defer. Now we are on the motion to defer. Is that everybody? Y'all are doing a good job. So we're now on the motion to defer. Councilmember Vercher, you're recognized.
Explain the rule of the motion to reconsider.
Ms. Darby?
I thought when we do the motion to reconsider, we can't vote on it the same night that we do the motion to reconsider. So essentially, we put ourselves back to where we were.
Council is flipping through the rules book.
So Rule 36 is the council's motion to reconsider, but that's
not for committee.
I would argue with this motion to reconsider.
Yeah. The Roberts rules allow for a motion to reconsider and then to reconsider that motion immediately. If we were on the floor, yeah, I believe it would be Rule 36 motion to reconsider, which is a little bit different than Roberts rules.
And if we were on the floor, does that mean in committee or in council meeting?
In council meeting.
In council meeting. So what does it mean in committee?
The rules are silent on in committee.
Yeah.
I know the rules, Chair.
That is true.
And so if the rules are silent in committee, do we refer to Robert's Rules of Order?
Yeah.
And say it again. Robert's Rules of Order say?
Robert's Rules of Order allows you to do a motion to reconsider and then have the reconsider the actual motion that you're reconsidering.
Which is what we just did.
You would now be reconsidering the motion to defer. You would now be on the motion to defer.
And according to Robert's rules,
you can move
we can do that. So, Councilmember Vercher.
Chair, it's never happened in committee because we usually don't do a reconsideration in committee. This is where we do the work. This is where we take the vote to make the recommendation to the actual body.
That's correct. So, Councilmember Sawara.
This is just for my own purpose. If we were on the floor and we do the motion to reconsider, what does that mean? Just for education purpose, does that mean that we cannot retake the vote again until the next meeting? Just for clarification.
It would, the motion properly made and seconded would be considered and finally acted upon at the next regular meeting of the council or at a special meeting called for that purpose, but it would be at the next meeting of the council.
Thank you.
Okay, so does everybody understand where we are? Because this is a committee meeting, those rules are silent.
The rules are silent. You can follow the rules of the Robert's Rules of Order.
We are following Robert's Rules of Orders on this. So we are back to the motion to defer one meeting. And now we all understand, this is why we reconsidered, now that we all understand that this would be not just a recommendation from the committee, but an automatic deferral. So vote how you feel, based on the information that we've been given. So all those in favor of a one-meeting deferral, please raise your hand high. 1, 2, 3. I see 3. All those opposed to a one-meeting deferral, raise your hand high. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. This committee does not recommend a one-meeting deferral at this time. So now we are back on the motion to approve. And that has been moved and seconded and discussed. Are you ready to vote on the motion to approve? Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approval, raise your hand high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 6 opposed. Okay, I see 6 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstaining. And Councilmember Hauser will work very hard to get that information for tomorrow.
Get the answers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions, get to Councilmember Hauser, and she'll work hard to get her answers. Councilmember Mendez.
I mean, just for clarity, I was asking for an amendment, not for answers. So
You're asking for a late filed amendment.
if it's at all possible, that would be preferred.
Duly noted. Okay. Thank you. This is important. I appreciate the good discussion. We are on BL 2022-1167, sponsor Sledge and Taylor. This approves a lease agreement between the Metro government and the Nashville Soccer Club for part of a parcel of property at 1441 12th Avenue South. Councilmember Sledge.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a timely filed amendment that I'll move and ask for a second for an explanation.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. There's amendment. I'm going to talk about the amendment.
Yeah, the amendment simply recognizes the work of the Friends of the William Edmondson home site, who've worked in concert with MMPD, whose Midtown Hills precinct is right next to this parcel, and with Nashville Soccer Club. So it recognizes their work and also recognizes that nothing in this lease precludes separate agreements that they have among those entities and a letter of understanding that they've worked through. So with that, I'd ask for support of the amendment, and the bill is amended.
Gotcha. Any questions on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Any opposed? Amendment is recommended. 9 in favor, 0 against. Anybody not voting? Now on the bill as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We recommend approval. 9 in favor, 0. Anyone not voting? All right. With that, I believe that is our agenda. We are adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.